People who work in the wedding/marriage industry, what is the craziest drama you've experienced at a wedding? I wasn't working that weekend, thank the Lord, but bride asks for money only as wedding presents. During dancing, she sneaks over to the basket full of the envelopes and opens them up, counting her take. It's less than she hoped, so she calls the police, gets the DJ to stop the music, and accuses the waitstaff of stealing her gifts. Lines up the guests, asks each one publicly how much they gave her, screams at the police when they arrive to do something, sues the restaurant, or at least was threatening to when I stopped working there. My college girlfriend worked at a botanical garden and heard this story at a wedding industry networking event. Some non-members of a country club rented the party room for their wedding. You apparently could walk through the party room to get to the pool, or you could walk an extra 10 steps to get there by going outside. It was summer, so the pool was open. The wedding posted some people at the door of the party room so when someone would try to cut through, they would be redirected outside. Most people took this with grace and offered congratulations, except for one very intoxicated man. He was annoyed he couldn't cut through, but also that those people weren't members and were using his country club. He started to raise a big stink, to the point where the bride's brothers go over to talk to him. We are so excited for our sister and are sorry we are making this inconvenient, but would you mind just taking the outdoor path? And the like. Eventually the mother of the bride goes over and talks to the guy as well. He's unrelenting. He pays his dues and as such should be allowed to walk through this party room to the pool. While he's talking to the mother, a beer bottle comes flying through the air and drills him in the side of the head. Everyone turns to see the bride, having thrown the bottle, screaming "You're ruining my wedding," over and over again. Professional singer here. I was asked to sing at the wedding of an old friend about 10 years ago. The ceremony rehearsal and subsequent dinner was great fun, and I had a good time meeting all the fun people in this huge, elaborate wedding party. A cute groomsman caught my eye, and, after getting super drunk at the rehearsal dinner, we stumbled back to my apartment that was a few blocks from the restaurant and hooked up. He was totally hot and very fun, and we had great chemistry, considering we had never met before. He didn't stay the night, which was fine by me, and we didn't exchange numbers or anything. That morning, as we were all getting ready for the ceremony to start, he took me aside and said, "So, you're gonna be cool, right? Because my fiancé is here." I was horrified. Not wanting to ruin my friend's wedding ceremony with a spectacular drama fest, I kept quiet until the reception, where I got super drunk and, thereby, lost all my decorum. I'm 6 years sober last month. I hand wrote a note on the back of a program and gave it to the fiancé before I wobbled back home. I later heard there was crying, screaming, and punching. Don't work in the industry, but attended a wedding where this happened. My coworker was having her wedding on a public beach in Southern California. They weren't able to reserve anything, just make do with it the best that they could. Well, right before she was due to walk down the aisle, a homeless man stumbles into the group of people guests and passes out midway into the aisle. A couple of guys go over to get him to move, but the dude wasn't waking up. Ended up giving him CPR for a solid 20 minutes while waiting for the ambulance. Didn't hear anything else about him after they carried him off the beach. Homeless man died in the middle of my coworker's wedding. I'm a wedding officiant. The worst I saw was the venue manager punch the DJ square in the face, splattering blood all over the bride's dress. The venue manager was drunk and didn't like that particular song the DJ was playing. The bride thankfully laughed it off as the groomsmen carried the kicking and screaming venue manager to the door and literally threw him out the door of his own venue. The venue owner was then called and came to take the manager home. The venue owner gave them 50% off the rental cost on the spot. The bride and groom couldn't have been happier. Wedding DJ here. Bride was looking for groom to do the first dance. Took them about 30 to 40 minutes to track him down. He was bathing in the bathroom. When he came back into the hall, he smelled strongly of weed and had clearly been drinking heavily. They finally got him out of the bathroom. We start the first dance and he's clearly in bad shape. Bride starts lecturing him throughout their first dance. True love. Worked as a bartender for approximately 30 weddings summer after college. One time a cake was brought in from over an hour away right before people started arriving. It was one of those super fancy ones, probably 5 layers each with space in between them. 2 guys carried it in and put it on a table and the whole thing slid off and was ruined. Bride had a meltdown, but apparently they had a backup cake and the guys went back and got it, but it wasn't as nice. Another time bride cried in front of me. At the place I worked they always did a custom special drink that the bride/groom picked out for like the first hour, but usually the bride and groom are still taking pics. She asked me for one, but we were all out, and she got upset then started crying. Felt pretty bad, but really couldn't do anything about it. Bride and her mother did a cake testing. We designed a wedding cake for bride. All details are decided. Bride leaves happy. Mother of bride comes back alone to change design of wedding cake because the mother did not like the design the bride picked out. We told her sorry, your name is not on the order to make any changes. Mother of bride walks out and slams the door. I used to be a receptionist at a private club that often hosted weddings. My desk sat in the lobby where the bridal party would line up to make their entrance into the fancy wedding hall. Once, the bride and groom were having an argument in front of all the groomsmen and bridesmaids. Maybe 16 people. Not sure what started it, but they were both hammered, and she was screaming hell you piece of crap. And he was saying he wouldn't be such a piece of crap if she didn't act like such. She was bringing up past arguments. He was talking trash about her in front of her to the groomsmen. It was a mess. The music was starting, and they were supposed to make their grand entrance any second now. I thought for sure they were about to call off the wedding. This fight was so intense and mean. Finally the maid of honor pipes in and says maybe they should all start getting in position. The bride screams, everyone shut up. This is my day. Don't ruin it. I kid you not. On cue, they all straighten up, put on beautiful smiles, and walk arm in arm through the door, as if nothing had happened and everything was perfect. It was like something out of a robot flick. This was 2013, and I still think about them, and wonder if they are still married. I once was threatened by the father of the bride, and had the cops haul him off all, because his daughter didn't pay for a cake, so I didn't make it. We do everything online, through a payment plan. You do your down payment, after we agree on design/flavors from the tasting, and then sign a contract. In that contract it states that, if the cake isn't paid for in advance, I don't make it. We send you reminder emails and such, so it's not like we just straight up ignore you until it's go time, but still, it's your responsibility to pay. His daughter never made payments on her cake, so my payment system cancelled it, and refunded her money minus the down payment, as is standard. I get a call morning of, asking where I am. I tell the venue I have no idea, since I have no cake on record. They thank me and hang up. Dad shows up an hour later, fuming. He thought it was unfair that I screwed up her big day because she didn't know any better, even though I told her how it works, and it was in her contract, and she was 35. He then insisted I make her a cake in around 6 hours, for free. I told him there was no way I could do that, even if I needed to, which I didn't, because it was his daughter's screw up that caused her to not have a cake. He started screaming and threatened to kill me, unaware that one of my regulars in the shop that morning was a off-duty cop with his kid. Daddy got hauled off to jail before cocktail hour was even done. The caterer got drunk at the reception. This was before food service and at least partly on the alcohol purchased by the wedding party. He may have had some beer in one of his coolers too. The food was at least an hour late and not good. Supposedly the people he had coming to help serve bailed on him, so his girlfriend came to help. She was wearing a dress that barely covered her cheeks, and he was enjoying being able to get very handsy with her. Yes, those were the same hands prepping the food. He got very drunk after food was served, and took the mic from the DJ, and proceeded to propose to his girlfriend at someone else's wedding, when he was supposed to be working. Someone from the crowd shouted out, "But I saw you with another girl Thursday." He left the sink full of dirty dishes, an inch-deep puddle of chicken juice in the fridge, coolers of food outside, and had to leave his truck/trailer because he couldn't drive home. He then denied leaving the mess despite the photos of it. We don't have a preferred vendor list, but we have a list of one vendor who isn't welcome back. Not a wedding I attended, but this is the absolute craziest wedding I ever heard of. So I had one of those teachers who likes to make sardonic jokes, and one day he was sitting in the cafeteria with a few of us and someone mentioned weddings, and he said, actually, I almost didn't show up to my wedding. We all thought he was kidding, but then a little while later he told the story of his wedding. He was finishing up his undergrad at the time, and the night before his wedding his eye got red and inflamed. It was annoying, but not particularly painful, so he figured that it wasn't worth going to the emergency room for, and he'd just stop in at the doctor early the next morning, get it checked out, get some drops, and then still make it to his wedding in plenty of time. The next morning his father drove him to the hospital to get his eye checked out, and, figuring it would be quick, sat in the parking lot waiting for him. My teacher went to the ophthalmologist, expecting a quick exam and prescription, and was in shock when the doctor looked at the eye and told him that he was admitting him to the hospital. My teacher told him, no, you can't admit me. Why would you do that? The doctor told him that apparently he had a very rare eye infection which was going around the university where he was studying. Of the other people who had had the infection, a couple had lost the sight in one or both eyes and one had had the infection spread and had gotten very ill. My teacher tried to plead with the doctor to let him go. He was getting married that night. The doctor told him that he could go, but that he was going to give him a bottle of medicated eye drops which he had to use every 15 minutes on both eyes until he would come back the next day to be hospitalized. My teacher left and explained the situation to his bewildered father, who had been wondering what was taking so long. They debated attempting to push off the wedding, but there was no time to do anything, and so he got married that night with an alarm clock in his pocket which went off every 15 minutes when his mother would put drops into his eyes. Through the ceremony, through the reception, through the dancing, through the pictures, through the entire wedding night his poor wife spent the whole night putting drops in his eyes every 15 minutes. The next day he went to the hospital and became the only person infected at that university to recover completely unscathed from the infection. Those vows really came into play quick, in sickness and health, better or worse. 3 of the bridesmaids got absolutely sloshed during the wedding reception and let it slip that they had a foursome with the groom at his bachelor party the week before. The mother of the bride found out and told the rest of the parent table as well as the entire bridal party. Needless to say it was a pretty tense dinner service. The bride told staff there would be an annulment the next day. An unfortunate way of spending $60,000 in one evening. Worked in the industry for the last 6 years at a resort. This doesn't even scratch the surface of things I've had to deal with, lol. I worked in event planning for about 10 years, and it was almost entirely weddings. The most dramatic would probably be the time the groom discovered he was allergic to horses as he was being pulled down to the gazebo by several horses. We had to call an ambulance. He was okay after they got him some antihistamines, and his face was so swollen they couldn't take any pictures. Nice people, they were shockingly calm about the entire ordeal. I'm a wedding photographer, and at one wedding, the bride went to put on her dress, and it didn't fit. It was a corset back with a flap that pulls across under it, but she had gained weight and the flap didn't go all the way across her back anymore. Her mom started hysterically yelling at her daughter saying she warned her she was getting fat and should have stopped eating so much. The bride is in tears and mortified. I had to kick the mom out of the room and take control of the situation. Luckily the hotel sheets were a close enough ivory, so we cut a piece from the sheets to use as the fabric under the corset threading, and it was passable. I kept the mom away from the poor bride all day. Was working a photo booth at a wedding where an older woman accused another younger woman of being with another man other than that woman's husband. Apparently the older woman accused the young one of spending most of the night with some man, which was one of the venue employees. According to her, they had been driving around in his golf cart and getting cozy down by the bonfire. The young woman blew up at her and was shouting at her, "How dare you accuse me of being with some man?" So they got into a huge fight over it, and I think the younger woman ran off with the venue worker.